Hello, everybody, and welcome into episode 3 of season 2 of the Second City Hockey Ice Cold podcast. I am your host tonight. My name is Adam Hess. Glad you are listening. Joined as always by my co-host Robert Ziklinski. Robert, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well, friend. Doing well.
So that's good to hear. So we were blessed on this Sunday to not have to suffer through some Bears football. Did you watch other football?
Yeah, because I'm a masochist and I wanted to see what everybody else is enjoying around the league. So, yeah.
What football did you watch today?
The Falcons and Chargers. I watched the Falcons pull the Chargers and choke the game away, which was pretty entertaining. They went for it on fourth down in their own territory, and it was kind of funny.
Nice. I liked that the Falcons were wearing throwback uniforms today. Those and the Dolphins throwbacks were some good. Those were some good uniforms.
I like the Dolphins games because I had the Dolphins running back, and he has back 200-yard games, even though I'm probably going to lose in fantasy again. So I hate fantasy football.
Dude, my fantasy football team sucks too. Okay, enough football talk. I did not watch football today. I haven't watched, seriously, I think I watched the Bears' first drive on Thursday against the Packers. So it was 3 incomplete passes by Brian Hoyer, none of which I don't think went past the sticks. And they were all just like very bad passes. And I thought, and with the Cubs playing that night, I thought, well, this is just about enough football for me, and I just turned the game off and never went back to it.
So you didn't see my large adult son's breakout game?
No, I did not. I did not see Leonard Floyd have a breakout game.
Oh my god, dude!
Maybe that's why he had a breakout game because I wasn't watching.
Okay, just never watch a Bears game again.
Well, what about when we get Myles Garrett?
Well, that's my special boy. That'll be the new Tabo in town, except he'll actually be good. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's a okay. Wow.
All right.
If you're gonna throw shit at Tavo, let's get into Hawks talk though. Speaking of Tavo, R.I.P. So the Blackhawks are 3-3 with a lot of interesting uneven play. We haven't really seen them. We've seen them play very well in some games, and then in the same games play like trash. We've seen them play like trash for whole games, and I don't think we've seen them play well for a full 60 minutes yet. What's going on with the Blackhawks right now, Robert? What have you kind of been taking away from what you've seen so far from them?
I think it's a lot of chemistry issues, and the thing that kind of sucks about it is that they don't really have reinforcements this year as they would have in years past. So they kind of have to make this work. But it's a lot of the new guys, and that not even necessarily the rookies. It seems they're struggling to mesh with the veterans. And what you typically expect in maybe the young guys struggling or not getting things together, they've actually played like guys like Tyler Mott and Nick Schmaltz and Gustav Forsman. I mean, they've probably played above expectations. It's the veterans that have been dragging the Blackhawks down in some respects and struggling to move with them. And then that's kind of like, we'll get to it later, but that's kind of why like the penalty kill in my mind has been just abhorrent through every imaginable fashion.
Yeah, I think the big key for me, the most underperforming of underperformers thus far on the Blackhawks has got to be Jonathan Toews, who through 5 games he had just 1 even strength point. I did not catch the game last night, so I'm not sure if he had a point last night. I'm trying to pull up his stats on my phone right now as I'm trying to talk about it. But he has 2 assists this year through 6 games, which for your captain, for your first line center, for your $10.5 million player, as much as sometimes bringing the salary cap aspect of it is kind of a cliche, that 2 points, he's playing at a point every 3rd game per pace. So that's going to be just over 25 points this year if he continues at this pace. That kind of pace is horrible for the Blackhawks. They're not going, you can't get that out of your first line center. And part of that is that he's playing with players, no disrespect meant towards Marian Hossa or Richard Panik, but those guys are just, Hossa's no longer a top line player. Richard Panik never has been and likely never will be. And so he's been being dragged down, but at the same time, he needs to be able to elevate his game to step up. And so this is kind of my call out of Jonathan Toews. Hey, buddy, kick your shit in gear. Here we go.
No, exactly. At what point do we draw it back? Because I think like last year, we made a lot of excuses for Taves, that he wasn't playing with the best line mates, that he lost Brandon Saad, that Hossa wasn't always with him, or Hossa wasn't up to 100%. But he's supposed to be a superstar player. He's supposed to be one of the best centers in the league. He's certainly no Connor McDavid or Sidney Crosby, but at the rate they're paying him, I used to disagree with you. He can't not be producing at the rate he is. And it's kind of been and then he's also been the kind of the guy that's taking bad penalties too. There's been a lack of discipline. I've seen discussion points sort of brought up that where he's the Nick Lidstrom, or he's the guy that he's trying to minimize risk as much as possible, which is true. But at some point, maybe it's time to put yourself out there more when you need more offensive output.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it with just kind of from Taves' perspective, and I know I didn't necessarily mean for this to turn into like a Taves rag.
No, this is good. This is good.
It's good because he's a player that needs to be stepping up. Jonathan Taves has less goals than Ryan Hartman and as many points as Ryan Hartman. Less goals than Marcus Kruger and as many points as Marcus Kruger. Like, these are fourth line players for the Blackhawks that are producing at the same rate as Jonathan Taves and have directly put the puck into the net. Each of them only have one goal, but that is more goals than Jonathan Taves has through 6 games, and that's a big issue. And again, we know, like you said, we kind of created excuses last year, like the Saad and the talent, what was going on, the rotating, carousel of first line left wings that he had. But at the same time, his shooting percentage did go low, it was a career low. So it was like, hey, there is actually something to this. It's not just he's lost a step. But this year, I don't see any excuses for that. His shooting percentage is still 0. He has 2 points. Again, he's on a 25-point pace, barely more than 25 points. That's a nightmare when you're paying him $10.5 million, and he's the kind of guy that needs to step up and really kick his shit into gear.
And he's not generating many shots either. He only has 15 shots on the year through 6 games. I mean, 2.5 shots a game from your first line center? You're not going to score much at all. Frankly, I don't know how the Blackhawks have won 3 games with him producing like this. I mean, maybe the depth scoring is better than we thought. But it's also other guys. It's guys like Nicholas. It's guys like Nicholas Hjalmarsson that maybe have dropped off a little bit. Hossa, who I'm sure you want to talk about, has really fallen off a cliff. I'm not sure if it's his injury against Philadelphia the other week. All these guys just aren't – the people we didn't think we'd have to worry about are the people that are dragging this team down. Yeah,
and I mean, I don't know if I want to say dragging the team down.
Well, dragging
the team down is not necessarily accurate, but they're not elevating their play. And maybe you can look at it as a Hawks fan and say, okay, this is not going to continue. In all likelihood, Jonathan Taves is not going to continue to play at a 25-point pace all season. He's at least a 50-point player, which even that is not good enough based on what he's getting paid. But even if he gets 50 points, you can kind of look at it as, okay, that's a little bit of a down year. But he's probably going to end up somewhere in the 60s, which is good. But at this point in time, he's not there yet. And so maybe you look at it and say, okay, he's going to step up, get to that higher pace, and that's going to help elevate the Blackhawks. And that's kind of a positive outlook. But it's, again, like you said, it's the shot generation. It's not getting a lot of shots on goal. It's what share of the shot attempts are you holding? What possession rate are you at when you're on the ice? And I'm not looking directly at it, but I know that it's not great, just based on what I've heard about it. So I don't have a number to throw out, but I don't think
I'll look that up while you speak.
Sure, yeah. So it's a lot of, it's these guys that have historically carried the Blackhawks that aren't at the level they need to be at, and that's a big issue for them, and that's going to have to step up and change. You mentioned Marian Hossa. Last night, Marian Hossa was I think it was -9 at even strength and shot differential, and it was a -3 for goal differential, which -3 is not, plus minus is not necessarily an indicative stat, but Marian Hossa, defensive stalwart, one of the best two-way players to ever play the game, last night against the Maple Leafs, who, to their credit, are a young and fast team, and Hossa is not a young and fast player anymore, but he's on the ice for 3 goals against. That's the kind of stuff that cannot be happening.
Actually, this is kind of the stuff where the advanced stats maybe might be misleading. Maybe it's the small sample size. But Taves has a 59.7% Corsi percentage through 6 games and a Corsi relative of 12.5.
Are you looking
So
at
he's.
5v5 though, or all situations?
I am looking at all situations.
Oh, try to go to 5v5.
Okay. I mean, it's still pretty
Because he
good.
does play on the power play.
Well, yeah, that's obvious, but no, I'm just saying that really jumped out at me. I don't know how to. I don't know how to. Whatever. I don't know how to.
It's fine. I mean, even if it's not, the possession game, even if that aspect of it is not as bad as I was kind of assuming and thought and was interpreting from what I've been hearing.
Mhm.
It's the production has to be there, and maybe that will follow if they're continuing to produce shot attempts and controlling the play, and it should in all likelihood that is why we study analytics, is because we know if Jonathan Tays is controlling 59% of the shots on goal when he's on the ice, and he's not producing, that's going to change. He's going to start producing. That's what the stats tell us. But it needs to happen soon, because right now, like, to be blunt about it, kind of like we talked about with Mike Fail last week, the Blackhawks are not a playoff team based on the way they've been playing right now. Like, they're bound for the draft lottery at this rate.
And they're a literal one-line team again. I mean, Kane's on a more than point per game pace. I'm pretty sure I'm looking at Panarin right now. I think he's also on a more than point game per pace, and Isimov's really the guy that's facilitating. They only have one consistent scoring line, which isn't going to get you anywhere, which is what puts them on the pace for the lottery. And I'm looking at Panarin. Panarin has 5 points, so he's just under a point per game pace. So he's like, for 65 or 70 points. Same difference. I mean, they're having the same problems as they are last year. I think the one saving grace they have right now is their defense. But even their defense isn't playing as well as you'd think, even though there are some bright spots that people have looked at, like Sam Fells from TCI and Fifth Feather and otherwise, where their overall skill should eventually push the Blackhawks towards a higher level, but it's not there yet.
Right, and I think that the Blackhawks, they're too good of a team in terms of their high-end talent to not be a playoff team. But at the same time, that's the kind of stuff that we said about the 2014 Los Angeles Kings or 2015 Los Angeles Kings, and they missed the playoffs. Like the Los Angeles Kings missed out on the playoffs in the 2015 season, and that was a shock to a lot of people. But because it was they have high-end talent, and the Hawks are at a point right now where if they can't, if they end up running into injury issues, if Jonathan Toews or if Patrick Kane or Artem Anisimov or Artemi Panarin, if one of those big hosses goes down for them and for a extended period of time, they're going to be in a lot of trouble because they're relying too much, especially on that second line, like you just noted. They're relying too much on that line to produce. And luckily they've had guys like Tyler Mott has been impressive in the bottom, and in that bottom six, he's got 4 points through 6 games. That's good for an NHL rookie. Like he's looked good, but there has to be the step up, because if they lose one of those, their big players, their key names, they could be in for if Jonathan Toews if Patrick Kane breaks his collarbone again and has to miss 2 months of the season, that's going to be 2 months that you're without your top scorer, and you're going to have to try to overcompensate for that. You don't have a Teuvo Teravainen to call up anymore. You don't have Nick Schmaltz. There's no one. Nick Schmaltz is already on the roster. You don't have elite talent to bring up and try to fill that role. So you need these players to kind of hit their stride, because if they end up in injury form, or if they end up in injury form, if they get injured, they're not a team that's going to be able to compete well to make the playoffs, in my opinion.
Right now, just for being technical standpoint, I think they're the first wild card in the West, but still point again taken. I think that Kane's comparison is a little drastic, considering based off what we expected, because this team with a first round loss, at least what we wanted, they would have 4 or 5 months rest. It hasn't shown off yet. The Canes, I think that team was running a little on fumes, and they didn't have the same necessary defensive depth that the Blackhawks do right now, or at least theoretically do. Still agree with all that. I just wanted to make that point. But yeah, let's talk about that blue line. They haven't been the best they haven't been the worst, but there's clearly a lot of skill level here. Like I noted, like I mentioned that Sam Fells noted and Fifth Feather noted. What has impressed you, or what do you think needs to be improved? I think a lot of their struggles has played into the power play being, again, generally good, and the PK sort of on that historically bad pace. What stands out to you?
I think what stands out to me the most immediately, and maybe just because I um, have been looking for a new special boy after Teuvo Teravainen left, is Gustav Forsling looks very comfortable at the NHL level. He doesn't look like he's really needing to adjust. He is, he doesn't look uncomfortable. He's playing well. He looks confident, making good passes, playing well defensively, position-wise, and his defensive zone looks fine. So I think that, his play has been impressive to me, and it kind of sticks out mostly because I've been kind of watching him more. When he's on the ice, I pay a lot more attention to what he's doing. But overall, I think the Blackhawks blue line this year has looked better than it did last year. And as much as it is unfortunate for Trevor Van Riemsdyk to be injured, you never hope to see a player injured and forced to miss a period of time. I think in a lot of ways that injury and him not being able to be on the ice is going to end up being a net positive for the Blackhawks, because when he's on the ice, there's a lot of struggles that go on. And again, he's a useful enough bottom six player, but it seems like Joel Quenneville just wants to kind of stretch him a little too thin, try to overuse him in situations he's not comfortable in roles he's not great for, and because of that, it doesn't work out. And so I think that not having him as an option and kind of going more towards the what with Brian Campbell and Gustav Forsling and Duncan Keith and Nicholas Hjalmarsson and Brent Seabrook, and then Michael Kempney, who's looked good. Like that defensive core is going forward. As long as they don't get injured, that's a pretty good core for the Blackhawks to build upon. And there's good puck movement there. There's good defensive responsibility. So I think that they can be in a good spot.
The thing that sticks out to me the most, and especially once all these other people have mentioned it, it's how well all these guys are able to maintain possession and maintain pucks in for forwards. It's just that, we don't really have the high-end forwards or depth among forwards with guys that can finish these plays and turn them into goals and turn them into Brian Campbell, Michael Kempney, Gustav Forsling, and everybody, and then your set three of Hjalmarsson, Keith, and Seabrook, they all excel at keeping the puck in and pressuring. It's just that the forwards are the ones that more often than not lose the possession. I think once someone especially Brian Campbell, who I think people maybe underestimated a little bit how much he would bring considering his age. But through 6 games, he looks pretty good. And through 6 games, when you play him with a good partner like Keith, or even play him on his comfortable left side, he looks like one of the best possession drivers in the league and just a fantastically smooth skater. This team will look demonstratively better if 2 or 3 forwards can pick their play up, considering how the blue line has looked. Now, as far as the opposite side, Michael Kempney he looks kind of a little shaky to me lately, and I was curious to see what you thought of that.
Again, I haven't really been able to watch the Blackhawks recently. I did miss last night's game, and I did not catch Friday's game either. So I maybe have missed kind of the shakiness. But from what I've seen of him, I've liked what he's brought to the table. So I can't necessarily speak to the shakiness. But overall, like you said, I think that the Blackhawks blue line has been as much improved from last year. They're not going to have the same issues there. And like you said, the key is going to be, can they turn the good the good defensive core driving play into the forwards creating chances and creating goals. And so far that hasn't happened, and that's going to be key. If they can do that, that'll be key for the Hawks to have success this year.
And I think people discount that too. That's sort of how all the Blackhawks teams were built, where the defensemen are very active in the offensive zone. They're the ones pinching in. They're the ones creating the play. The Blackhawks rely much more on their offense or on their defensemen to create offensive possession or create offensive plays. Again, they didn't have that last year, and hopefully this starts to come more to fruition. Let's talk about that PK though. You've been doing a nice little project on that, Adam. They've allowed at least one power play goal every game. They've allowed 12 power play goals through 6 games. They're on a historically awful pace, currently at 42.9%, easily 30th in the league, easily last place in the league. Adam, what have you seen there, man?
Well, I don't want to give away too much of the article that I'm writing, which I guess people will not hear this podcast until probably after it comes out. So I guess maybe I can kind of go into a little more detail. But to me, the main thing I'm seeing from the Blackhawks, and I mean, I went through and watched every single power play goal that they gave up, and not just like the goal itself, but I watched the entire penalty kill from the face-off to start it all the way through the goal. And then I also actually watched some successful ones and to try to see if those same issues were still present and if they were just kind of getting lucky. And what I'm seeing is that the Blackhawks are doing a I would say good job of pressuring the puck when it's down low or along the boards. Kind of if it's at the face-off dots or lower, they're doing a good job of getting after the puck carriers, taking away passing lanes, kind of making them make a play. But they're not defending the point. And when I say not defending the point, I don't mean not defending the point well enough. I don't mean not defending the point and like often. I don't mean sometimes don't defend the point. I mean they do not defend the point. Like full stop. They let pucks go to the point. They don't stop. They leave those passing lanes open for teams to take advantage of. Then once the puck's at the point, they don't pressure the point player at all. I was like looking at against the St. Louis Blues, actually, which is the very first game. The Blues had a power play where they score with like 10 seconds left on the power play. And I would say they had the puck in the offensive zone for a full minute of that power play, maybe more. And 60% of that was the puck being at the point. And they're just passing it back and forth, moving the Hawks around, trying to like get it up. At one point, Colton Parayko, who has a huge shot, had the puck and was just left all alone. And then he took a shot. It didn't go in, but then they had a ton of time again. Pietrangelo has the puck all alone, passes to Tarasenko across the ice on the point all alone, passes back. They rotate a little bit. Pietrangelo throws it to Kevin Shattenkirk all alone at the point. No one's trying to take away those lanes. No one's trying to defend these players, and Shattenkirk bangs home a one-timer. And it's like this was the first penalty kill that I watched doing this project, and I thought, I think I know exactly what's going to be the problem for the rest of this, because it was so evident in that one that was what I was let's see if it's in the next one, and it was there every single time. And like they're letting teams have the point, and it's honestly like incredible that they haven't figured out that, like, hey, all of these goals are being scored because of a point shot. Like it's either point shots going in or point shots being redirected or point shots that generate a rebound, like, or point passes that then, like, because you don't contest the pass, it allows them to make a play. Like last night against Toronto, I watched the William Nylander goal, and I don't know who it was that started the play, but he had a wide open pass across the point to Austin Matthews, who then had a wide open pass back through the ice to William Nylander. No one is defending the point. They're not trying to take away they're letting people make plays. They're not forcing them to make plays, and they just need to be a little bit more aggressive. And that's kind of what I've taken away from watching all these and analyzing all these power plays or penalty kills in the Blackhawks sense, is that there's no aggression. There's so much passivity because they don't want what they're afraid of doing is, I think, taking away sight lines from Corey Crawford. And so they don't want to break out of this box. Mike Darnay did a post over the weekend for SB Nation about how they stay in the box so much. They're afraid to kind of leave that box. And because they don't leave the box, they're letting the point stay wide open. Well, you have guys like Kevin Shattenkirk, like Alex Pietrangelo, like PK Subban, like Zach Werenski, like Shane Gostisbehere, who are all elite talents and like elite blue liners in the NHL and have great shots. And you're letting them, just do whatever they want at the point. You're letting them have pass lanes. You're letting them have shooting lanes. You're not challenging them, not forcing them to make a play. And that's bad news for your penalty kill every single time.
See, and that's exactly where I think that inexperience plays in, because allowing those sight lines, that's something the Blackhawks have always done in the Quenneville era. They want Corey Crawford to have as best vision as possible of every shot when killing the penalty. They don't want to screen him unnecessarily. They want to maintain that box. But as you noted, they're not like previously when they would be successful, because all of the previous 3 Cup teams had great PKs. At least in the playoffs, they did.
They've never won a Stanley Cup when they were not a top 10 penalty killer.
Exactly.
And any time that they weren't a top 10 penalty killer, they have not won the Stanley Cup, which is just fascinating stat to me.
Well, it's important. I think to me, I'd rather have a great PK than a power play, because especially with the Blackhawks, who have a lot of these high-end scorers, they can break through at any time. Having a great power play isn't as important as just being disciplined enough to make up for someone's high stick or make up for someone's hooking. And as you noted, the box, like, I think it's the inexperience that they're not comfortable enough to flex it out if they need be to break the point and everybody cover for each other. I think everybody has that passiveness because they don't have that and this is maybe just me speaking to cliches, but they don't have that necessary trust to make up for each other yet, because there is a lot of new guys playing with that. You have 3 new defensemen, you have 3 new forwards. I mean,
sure, I see that point. But the people killing penalties are not that much different than the people who have killed penalties in the past. It's still Jonathan Toews and Marian Hossa and Artem Anisimov and Marcus Kruger and Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook and Nicholas Chalmerson. Like, I mean, really, the Hawks rotate those 3. One of those 3 defensemen, their big 3 defensemen, Seabrook, Keith, or Chalmerson, are always on the ice on the penalty kill. And sometimes with, it might be Michael Kempney, a couple of times it's been TVR, sometimes it's been Forsling, but one of those 3 is always there. And then Toews and Hossa are still a power play duo, a penalty killing duo. Really, the only new forward that's been killing penalties is Tyler Mott. And in my opinion, watching them, he's the one player that I go, hey, he's actually kind of doing a little bit, like he's kind of pressuring the point. Like, he's at least getting closer and kind of like making, like, he's just like, I don't want to say forcing a play because he's not, but he's like, okay, he kind of looks like he's trying, like he thinks that he's making them make a play, I guess, is what I'm trying to say is like he's the one that just looks the best of all the penalty killers, in my opinion, even better than Jonathan Toews at this point. But again, they're not aggressive like at all on the penalty kill. And I don't mean just like taking away the point either. Like, natural stat trick, Satchel pointed this out to me. Our fearless leader pointed out to me that they are the only team in the NHL that does not have a shot on goal shorthanded this year through 6 games. They're being outshot 54-0 on the penalty kill. You break that down per 9 games, that's 9 extra shots on goal that you're letting that team have against you. So 9 more opportunities that your opponent has than you do to score a goal. That's horrible. And again, on a penalty kill, like, your goal is not to score goals. Your goal is to kill the penalty and not let the other team score a goal. But the Blackhawks last year were tied for 3rd with 10 shorthanded goals. This year they don't even have a shot on the net when shorthanded. So it's the same coaching staff for the most part. It's the same players. Where's that aggressiveness? Where is that gone? Where is that mindset gone? And I think, Jonathan Toews said it's 100% mental. It's all like, it is a mental thing and I think part of it is because, they gave up 3 power play goals to the St. Louis Blues in the home opener. That's a tough start. So now, like, you're already behind the 8 ball, because I think they were 3 for 4 that night. So you're already at a 25% pace, which is like obviously horrible. But it's 1 game, so like you can still kind of bounce back. But again, like, it kind of plants a seed of doubt of like, holy crap! Like, we gave them 3 power play goals. Now one of them was a 5-on-3 goal by Vladimir Tarasenko, so you can't really be that mad about it. But
who?
They let 3 shut up. They let 3 power play goals in against the Blues. So then that kind of like lets that seed of doubt creep into your head, where it's like, hey, can we actually kill penalties? Like, you're starting from an uncomfortable position, and then when you go to and play the Nashville Predators and you have a penalty kill early in the game, and PK Subban, you leave him all at the point and he winds up and scores, it's like, oh God, here we go again. Like, because the first goal of the Predators scored 5 minutes into the game was, even though it would tie the game because the Hawks already had a lead, was a power play goal. So I think it is mental for the Hawks, but they have to get that back in their heads, and they have to make the strategic change to say, we're going to start pressuring these players at the point. We're going to start taking the point away because we don't want to be like, we want to make them make a play. We don't want to let them make a play. And I think that again, I don't think that's going to solve their issues, but that's going to be a step in the right direction, because right now, like you said, they're at 42.9%, which means that right now, if they take a penalty, they are more likely to give up a goal than to kill off the penalty. And you're not going to win the Stanley. You're not even going to make the playoffs if you give up a goal more than half the time you take a penalty. And then even if you improve that, even if you I don't want to say double, because that's like doubling you'd be a good penalty kill. But say you become 150%, or not, sorry, say you become 50% better. So now you're a 60% penalty kill team. Well, you're still looking at only killing off 6 out of every 10 penalty kills, or 3 out of every 5. So that means every 5 times that you are shorthanded, you're giving up 2 goals. That's not good. You can't, because you're probably going to be taking 3 to 4 penalties in a game. And that's just how the game is. It's very rare the game that is played without penalties. So you really need to start. And not, the key isn't take less penalties. The key is, we need to start making the steps to give up less goals.
Yeah, and I like that mental point grade too, because it's the kind a power play or penalty kill it is very mental. I feel like ideally, once they get into a rhythm, once they kill off a few straight, that's when you gain confidence, and that's when you can go on one of those 16 for 18 runs or 16 for 19 runs or whatever, or however many straight, and you can correct that. But the funny thing is, even if they say we're to go 20-20 over the next few games, over the next 2 weeks, that still would barely have them break even, or that still would have them at just an average penalty kill based off of these first 6 games. I guess we'll just see how it develops over.
Right. And it's obvious that they're not going to stay a 43% penalty killing team. Like that, I don't even know what the record low in NHL history is, but I guarantee you it's probably in the low 70s. Like, they're going to start killing off a lot more penalties. Like, that is just that's going to happen naturally. But at the same time, I don't want to at this point they almost have to kill off 90% of their penalties over the next couple of games to even get themselves to being an 80% penalty killing team. Like, they're so far behind the 8 ball that it's not that they're just going to be. I don't know. It's weird to put in. They're so far behind the 8 ball that they are going to be having to they're going to have to pick up the pace big time to become a respectable penalty killing team.
It's the kind of aspect for me that I want to wait a little longer. I want to wait another month or so, or a month and a half or so, before I definitively take a judgment of this team and in all facets. But right now, through 6 games, it doesn't look good.
Yeah. So let's move on a little bit from the penalty kill here. Let's talk about Trevor Van Riemsdyk.
What, do we have to?
I know. I mentioned before, though, injured against Columbus, right? That's what it was against.
He went into the post. He slid into the post. He was fighting with Ligno.
And let's just talk. So we can we can talk about it in a second. But so injured. Previously, before that, was being talked about. Elliot Friedman this week referenced that Trevor Van Riemsdyk might be trade bait on the Blackhawks end as they try to attain some forward depth. So the Blackhawks had not really been playing him until that point. Then that game, I don't want to call it a showcase, but they let him into the roster or into the lineup because it doesn't look good if you're trying to trade players that you don't even want to play. And then he gets hurt. So now, what kind of trade value does he have? Is it completely gone, or is he still movable? And even if he is movable, what kind of player are they even going to get in return?
Well, I mean, clearly, as Elliot Freeman noted, they're looking for, like you said, they're looking for a forward. They're looking for a depth scoring forward. But someone's going to want to salvage him. For the Blackhawks, especially at the present moment, he doesn't have any value considering the first 6 guys they have on their blue line. As we noted, those are all very skilled guys that can move the puck, that are disciplined in their own zone, that are composed in their own zone. To the opposite of TVR. TVR's greatest strengths, and that have always been, he has some relatively decent offensive instincts, I guess. But he looks like Bambi. He looks like Bambi sometimes in his own zone, trying to make a simple pass, or he's caught staring. He's caught flat-footed on what is it, 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s, whatever, and it doesn't look good for him. As far as his trade value, I mean, you're really looking for a bad team, I guess. You're looking for Toronto, you're looking for Ottawa, you're looking to salvage something and getting really anything in return at this point, because, I mean, it's clear even the Blackhawks are losing belief, at least to me.
Yeah, I think that, his place in this organization is dwindling. They've, the fact that they've consistently brought in talent that has been better than him is obviously disappointing. Bringing in a guy like Brian Campbell, who, it's no secret that Campbell's a better player than Trevor Van Riemsdyk. But then you bring in a guy like Michael Kempny, who throughout the preseason and throughout early this year has just looked like he's comfortable in the NHL game and has looked better than Trevor Van Riemsdyk. And then Gustav Forsling, who is so young but is such a special talent.
He's already better than TVR. Let's be honest.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's discouraging because it's like, he's so young that he's already better than you. Like Trevor Van Riemsdyk is 26 years old or 25. He's not going to be getting significantly better. Gustav Forsling still has room to get significantly. He has room to get significantly better in the next year or two. Trevor Van Riemsdyk does not. He is what he is at this point, and so it's discouraging. And I think even Ville Pokka, who, as much as he has kind of been disappointing and it hasn't necessarily worked out since being traded, and since being acquired in the Nick Leddy deal, even he looks like a player with a better future in this team than Trevor Van Riemsdyk. So being injured is obviously a huge blow for him in terms of his place on this team.
I did have the Maple Leafs people from Pension Plan Puppets were asking me what it would take to pry away Van Riemsdyk, and I couldn't give an honest answer. Ideally, like I said earlier, the Blackhawks would want a depth scoring forward, but is he even worth that? I mean, I'm asking that to you. Is he even worth anything more than a 3rd or 4th round pick? I can't confidently say that because he's not very good. He's kind of stagnant and he doesn't move his feet. He has no discernible skills. A lot of other Hawks bloggers have made fun of him for over a year, and I fought that particularly, but I can't anymore. He's just bad.
Yeah, I think it's hard really to judge anymore what players are worth in the NHL, and not even necessarily because a huge part of it is because NHL GMs make a lot of really stupid trades. I mean, if Peter Chiarelli wants to give us McDavid for TVR, right. When you're looking at teams trading Taylor Hall, elite talent like Trader Hall. Wow, Trader Hall. That's a good one if you're an Edmonton fan. Make sure you credit me, Oilers fans listening. But if you're looking at teams trading elite talent like Taylor Hall for okay players like Adam Larson, and
he's a good defenseman, but he's not Taylor Hall.
Right, he's okay, but he's not elite. And Taylor Hall is an elite forward. So you make a play like that, or a trade like that, it's so weird. And I think if you're Edmonton, as stupid of a trade as that is, you look at it they need defense. So maybe Edmonton's a team that is okay, you know what? We really need defense. Let's give up a player. I can't even think of anybody. I think the perfect player to trade Trevor Van Riemsdyk for would have been Nail Yakupov. But then in that case, I think, and I think, as much as those talks, we have heard that happened, I'm sure that, I shouldn't say I'm sure, but if I was Stan Bowman and that was what the Oilers were asking for, I would have had no problem giving them Trevor Van Riemsdyk for Neil Yakupov. But at the same time, I'm sure the issue in that was the salary. So I think that could have been a pretty fair trade in terms of Van Riemsdyk for Yakupov. So I think kind of like a Yakupov type, like a younger player with some skill who has been underperforming, or like a scoring kind of forward. Like I think of a guy, I don't think this is a trade that will happen, but a guy like P.A. Parento, like players of that kind of fold where they haven't really been fine. Like they're consistently signing 1-year deals. No, like they're just kind of becoming journeyman players. Like, yeah, we'll use you here for a year and then you go sign with this team for a year. Someone like that, teams that need defensemen or that are willing to just kind of say, okay, we have P.A. Parento or similar player, give us, warm body and decent draft picks. So the Hawks go, okay, Trevor Van Riemsdyk, 5th round draft pick, here you go, and we'll take your, journeyman scoring forward who's useful enough. So I think that's the kind of player that it's going to take to get that Van Riemsdyk can get. But again, it's just so hard to judge trade talent, especially because as much as we as fans look at Trevor Van Riemsdyk and are frustrated and see the flaws, like, there's so many. It's hard to know what GMs value. And especially certain GMs are going to value other things more than the other GMs. Like Stan Bowman might value a player's offensive ability on the blue line, whereas Dean Lombardi or Jim Benning, who's probably a better example of a bad GM, might just go, is he a leader or is he gritty? Like shit like that. Like stuff like or
is he a stay-at-home defenseman, which is trash, but
right.
Same thing with Chris. Is he a Chris Russell type? What does he bring to our locker room?
Sure, yeah, exactly. So it's just going to depend on what the team acquiring Van Riemsdyk values, what they view him as being worth, what the Blackhawks view him as being worth, and what they ask for in return. I'm sure they're not going to be asking for first round pick or obviously not like a Connor McDavid or even a player like Taylor Hall. Or even I don't even think they would be asking for a player like David Perron from the Blues. It's just like that for some reason, that's the name that came to my head. Not that the Blues would be interested in Van Riemsdyk or that would be a realistic player, but I don't even think a household kind of name, third line player is really going to get Trevor Van Riemsdyk. It's going to have to be a player who's kind of a journeyman, like I kind of mentioned with P.A. Parento, a player of that kind of fold.
And if for some reason they don't trade him, I think we can both agree that his time in Chicago is numbered. If he's not traded by the deadline in February, then he's probably going to be up for grabs in the expansion draft for the Vegas team. I mean, it's pretty safe to say TVR. Maybe he joins his brother in Toronto through a trade or not, or wherever else. But
what if he's traded for his brother?
Dude, JVR? Are you kidding me? JVR on this team? That's exactly what we would need. Don't even say that. Now I'm hyperventilating.
That would be the Leafs would be stupid to make that trade, but the
Leafs would be.
That'd be some Twilight Zone shit, dude. Like, how often have brothers been traded for each other in the NHL? Has that ever happened? That'd be pretty cool. There could be a 30 for 30 on that.
That'd be like trading Peyton Manning for Eli Manning. I mean, I don't even know. Whatever.
And that's actually not that James Van Riemsdyk is the Peyton Manning of hockey, but the skill level there. Actually, Eli Manning's way better of a player than TVR is. But it's still comparable in terms of.
It's a comparable thing and how much different they are.
Trading the elite brother, or
JVR is a 60-point player that can score 25 to 30 goals. I mean,
JVR is a very good player. So trading the high end brother for the brother who's okay but not great
for the Ganley Lakey guy. Yeah,
Anyway, moving along. Let's talk about Richard Panik, who so this was fun. I was looking at doing the penalty kill piece today, finalizing that. I went on the NHL.com stats page. And whose bright, shiny face lights up as the leader of goals in the NHL, your National Hockey League NHL leading goal scorer is
Richard Panik.
Dick Panik.
Sorry, Dick Panik, yes.
So we, 6 goals this year on 9 shots, which is just a very nice conversion rate.
It's a very nice conversion rate.
He's been playing pretty well. I don't think there's any denying that. but he's obviously getting pretty lucky.
I mean,
6 goals on 9 shots is not a pace that he will continue at. So what can we realistically expect from him moving forward throughout the year?
well, yeah, obviously he's not. Yeah, like you said, he's not going to shoot 66% on the year. He's not going to shoot 6 of 9 nice on the year. A lot of his goals have been where just conveniently the puck bounces off of his stick, or he's there for cleanup duty, which maybe speaks to effort or whatever cliche crap you want there. To finish his hat trick against Nashville he had last week, Kane just passed it off to him, even though Kane could have probably scored himself. Realistically, we can get 20 goals from him. We can get 45 or 50 points from him up there playing with Taves and Hossa or Taves and Mott. I mean, I'd be pretty satisfied. We're going to see a very dramatic drop-off very soon. But once he gets onto that kind of pace, 45 to 50 points, I think I'm satisfied. I think that's the kind of player he is. He's a very good two-way player. He's not Brandon Saad. He's not going to confuse anyone with Brandon Saad, but he's responsible in his own end. He has a lot of speed. He has okay hands. And once the luck kind of drops out, I mean, I guess more or less that's where we're headed. That's what we're headed for.
Yeah, I think at this point in the season, with him already having 6 goals, I don't think 20 points is necessarily an unrealistic benchmark for him for this season. But I think
20 points or 20 goals.
20 goals. I mean, yeah. I don't think 20 goals is necessarily unrealistic. I think in general he's kind of a 10 to 15 goal player. That's what you expect from him. I think is going into this year. I think we could have said, yeah, somewhere between 10 and 15 goals would be a pretty good amount for Richard Panik. And playing on the top line minutes with Jonathan Toews, getting that, having that kind of skill level, maybe elevating him to between 15 and 20. The fact that he has 6 through 6 games, I think makes 20 much more realistic for the year. Obviously, he's not going to score 82. He's on
pace for 82 goals.
Right. He's not going to stay on a goal per game pace.
We'll see.
I mean, I'd be happy. I'd be fine if he does. But I think 20 is not unrealistic. 20. I mean, even 25 could be within reach. I don't want to push it too much. But I think saying 45 to 50 points might be pushing it a little bit. I think realistically, he looks like a 35 to 40 point player. Because I don't know. I mean, again, if Jonathan Toews can kind of step up and get into like a 55 to 60 point level himself, which he's certainly capable of, then I'm sure Panik can play into that a lot if they're going to spend time together. And so Panik can kind of rack up the assists and finish off a lot of those of Toews' assists, and rack up the goals. But I don't know if that's necessarily a point total that's realistic for him.
Yeah, and that's kind of what Toews has normally averaged through his career, 55 to 65. So maybe that might elevate him. The Hawks are already stretching Panik. I think Panik is more of the guy that normally, if the Hawks have more top-end talent than they do, that he would probably be making more appearances on the third line. But they're kind of asking him a lot more than he's already done. And in that respect, it's pleasing. It's nice to see a guy making the most of his opportunity, at least for now. He's clearly less talented. He's clearly less of a high-end guy, but he is excelling under more extraneous circumstances than one would expect from a player of his skill level. It's at least heartening to see. It's a good story. I mean, it's one of the best. It's probably the better story of the Hawks season at the moment.
Yeah, I think my issue is I don't know how much longer I really want to see him playing with Jonathan Toews.
Well, if you wouldn't have him with Taves, I mean, you don't have many options. That's kind of the thing.
I'm starting to get of the mind that the Blackhawks need to break up the second line of Anisimov and Panarin and Kane, and not just move Artemi Panarin to the first line. Like, I honestly think that those 3 players need to be on 3 different lines. And maybe this is a little too radical, but I would really like to see Panarin, Toews, Hossa as the first line, and then Panik, Nick Schmaltz, and Patrick Kane as the second line, because I think Schmaltz's offensive ability would complement Patrick Kane well enough for that to be a good offensive line, and Panik with his ability to finish plays off, kind of be, the hard nose around the net can be beneficial. And then I think sliding Anisimov to the third line, which obviously he's not a third line player, but because you can maybe try to stretch Nick Schmaltz's offensive style and let him be a second line player, you can kind of, benefit yourself by sliding Anisimov to that third line. That can benefit the depth as well. So I think that if the Hawks can kind of do that, I don't know if you think that's too unrealistic or a little too radical, but I think that's a good way for them to kind of spread that depth out as well, is take that one scoring line and kind of spread it out among three lines and see if that can generate some offense throughout the whole lineup. I think that if that's a kind of change that I'd be welcome to see. And if it didn't work out, I don't think that you're worse for the wear for at least trying something there.
No, I like that, and I was actually going to mention that too. I understand the people that think Kane and Panarin have this special chemistry together, which they do. They blaze the ice on fire when they're on a breakaway. You might as well, more often than not, it's going to end up a goal for either of the two. And they play this puck possession game. They're really the only line and the only two players that can maintain possession on one in the offensive end for extended periods right now for the Blackhawks. But if they're so special and talented, why can't Panarin do that with Taves? Kane has been able to carry a line by himself before. Taves hasn't, and the Blackhawks have spread out their talent in better respects. I think the depth looks much better if they implement what you did. I think the Blackhawks actually have four lines they can trust if they want you did. And then with Anisimov, I'm kind of down on him. I think he's kind of more or less. I mean, this is a good, responsible player, but to me, how much does he benefit from playing with Kane and Panarin? If Schmaltz is your discounted special boy, ideally within the future he's your second line center anyway, right? He's playing in the top six within a few years if that's what you project him as. While Anisimov, I don't know. I feel like he's playing more cleanup duty, or he's just opening things up more than actually being active in creating what that line does. And I want to see them follow through with that suggestion, because other than that, like we mention it all the time. Otherwise, they only have one scoring line. Right,
and I think again, I don't think that kind of trying that kind of thing. Again, while it may seem a little drastic to break up that line and do so, like to literally take that line and break it up completely and put all of them with different line mates, it's a little bit of a drastic change, and it probably wouldn't hit right away. But I think if the Hawks can stick with that for 5 to 10 games and see if some chemistry can be generated, see if they can kind of get like 3 lines scoring or even just 2 lines scoring, and then see if they can tinker there and kind of get some players hot, then I think that kind of thing can be beneficial. Or even if you want to switch it up a little bit and let Schmaltz play the left wing between Anisimov, or not between, but play the Schmaltz play left wing with Anisimov and Kane, and play Panarin with Jonathan Toews and Marian Hossa, that kind of move can be beneficial too, because again, you can't be a one-line scoring team. And I don't think that they will, I don't think that they necessarily will be only one line, because I think Jonathan Toews is going to rebound. There's no way, again, he's going to continue to play at this horrid point, this point pace he's on. But they have to make some kind of move, I think, and I think that can be a good move. So, yeah, that's just kind of a thought that I had there. I'm not sure if people will react to that. But let's kind of so we've done a lot of, again, last week we talked with Mike Fail a lot and about the Blackhawks, and it was kind of a, I don't want to say depressing, but it wasn't depressing. It was not a positive necessarily chat about the Blackhawks, and I think it was much more realistic. Stop tapping.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
That's okay.
Nervous tick.
It's okay. So we're gonna restart this. I'll edit this out. Last week we talked with Mike Fail about how the Blackhawks are not necessarily a team that on paper looks great for the playoffs. Obviously, there's going to be some growing pains, and they might be able to transition into that. But right now, I think there's a lot to be concerned about with the Hawks. We've talked about Jonathan Toews not performing. The penalty kills horribly, horribly bad. you know, the depth is not there. And the blue line has looked good, but it's still obviously hasn't been enough to get it done. At this point, when do you think that we can kind of know what we'll expect more from the Hawks? And is there a point at which we need to be more realistic and kind of maybe, I don't want to say get into a panic mode, but think, hey, maybe this team is not what we thought they were?
Yeah, no, it's maybe once if we ever get to that point, it's more just pulling back the reins. Like, hey, they're not as great. This is more of a retooling year. I've always the entire summer and moving into the season, I've been of the mindset that this would be a year where they would not that it was a retooling year because they can't look at that anymore. Their window with where their core players are, they maybe have 2 or 3 years of serious cup contention at best, if that's what they want. They can't afford to have any of more of those kinds of down years, or at least down years for them, where they're losing in the first round, missing the playoffs, whatever, not capturing the cup. And to get to my original point, I look at it where this first month, a lot of growing pains, probably up till Thanksgiving, a lot of growing pains. And if I'm not seeing – if Taves isn't having a market correction, if their penalty kill is still just atrocious in every facet, they still only have one line, then that's when I think we can pull back the reins. But typically around that point they start putting together a nice 7 or 8 game winning streak where they're getting 16 to 18 points, whatever. That's when I will reserve my judgment more seriously. Now, especially with how the World Cup of Hockey played into things, I think there's a lot of and this isn't making excuses for them. I think this is kind of an extended preseason by respective measures, but that excuse will run out eventually too. So I have a 5 or 6 week timer where I want to see gradual improvement. And that's how I always was. This isn't me overreacting. This isn't me being biased. This is how I've seen the 2016 Blackhawks. I've envisioned them for a while now.
Yeah, I think that you bring up the it's interesting you bring up the World Cup because I was asked before the World Cup started if the World Cup created any kind of worry, should create any kind of worry for the Hawks fans about a slow start. And I said, if anything, I would be more concerned about a hot start that is unsustainable. But instead, what we have, because you're gonna have these players like Jonathan Toews, like Patrick Kane, like Marian Hossa, who before they even play preseason games are playing regular season paced, maybe even playoff paced, and like NHL level games against elite talent. And obviously, like Patrick Kane only got to play, I think it was 3 games because Team USA sucked ass. Jonathan Toews went on to win the gold medal, and so did Corey Crawford, even though he didn't play a ton. But like the Hawks had a lot of players at the World Cup that played a lot of like NHL regular season hockey right away. So I think the concern was a little bit more like these guys are going to be so ready that they're going to get off to a hot start that might not be sustainable. Instead, we have a very slow start. And so I don't know, again, like you said, I'm not ready yet to hit the panic button, but it's still
they're showing seams, but I'm not surprised by these seams.
Like I said earlier, they haven't played a great game yet. They've played periods of great games. They've played great, parts of games. They were great against the Flyers for, 35 minutes, and then they decided they didn't want to be great against the Flyers anymore and gave up a 4-goal lead. And they still won that game, but they have not played a really good game for 60 minutes yet. And so I think if that kind of thing continues for another 3 to 4 weeks, where they're just kind of getting by and they're losing to teams like Columbus and having to beat teams like Toronto in a shootout, then I think that at a certain point it becomes a more realistic thing of maybe this team should be looking to sell at the deadline and see what they can get for the players they have.
They will never sell,
as opposed to trying to buy. I think you're right that they won't do that, but I think that that's kind of what they might have to realistically do, because even if they hit a stride, I don't see them being a cup contender this year. Even if a lot of these things turn around, I don't see them winning the Stanley Cup.
I
they would have to make a major addition at the trade deadline to become a cup contender.
to sell. I mean, what do they have to sell? They can't sell. Like I said, Adam, like they are, whether they are a cup contender or not, they're playing for a cup. Like, you know that you know what I'm trying to say? They're playing for a cup. They have nothing to sell. This team has no reinforcements. The assets they have are necessarily proven enough to get anything back to where they can retool enough for next year.
I wonder though, like, can you sell Brian Campbell? Can you sell?
He's on a 2-year deal.
He
has a
1-year
option.
deal. 1-year deal.
I mean, are you going to sell?
He's on a 1-year deal. Can you sell that to a team that needs defense? Can you sell Andrew Desjardins to a team that needs defense? Can you sell Dennis Rasmussen? Not defense. Can you sell Andrew Desjardins to a team that needs forward depth? Can you sell Dennis Rasmussen to a team that needs forward depth? Like, I think that there are pieces that they could move and kind of recoup some assets, even if it's just mid-level draft picks, and kind of get themselves in a good spot for next year, only if they're not in a position like, again, I don't think they're going to win the Stanley Cup this year. So I'm not saying like they should sell regardless, but if they're in 6th place in the Central in January, I don't think that they should be giving up assets in an effort to finish 4th and make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Unless you're getting like a significant kind of player that really makes a difference. But you cannot make another Andrew Ladd trade this year. Because
they absolutely can't. No. I mean, that already hampers this team. That kind of was what sets back this team. But I will respectfully disagree. While I don't see a cup right now, again, even if they hit their stride, Like a lot of the better cup teams, like even say Pittsburgh last year, they had to go through a radical system change where they hired Mike Sullivan. And then Sidney Crosby finally found his natural generational best player in the game skill set returned to him. Again, I see this team, if they are a cup contender, then they will pick it up. You see everyone's favorite, Nashville. Nashville doesn't look fantastic either. Nashville's actually behind the Blackhawks in the standings right now, and by virtue only of having played less games. But they're 2-3. And they don't look fantastic either. They lost to Detroit the other night. There are a lot of teams right now that, again, like I said earlier, it's an extended preseason. Kind of need to knock off the rust. Kind of need to knock off a little bit of the lead on their legs and the weights on their legs weighing them down, and see where it goes for them. I'm not writing them off. I agree with you. I don't see a cup right now, but I am reserving judgment for 4 or 5 weeks. Yeah, I'm taking that stance.
I think it's a little too – again, it's too early to make any definitive statements, but I do think that if you're worried about this team at this time, I don't think that is a bad place to be at.
No, you're warranted. You're warranted.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's
transition out of this. You had this wonderful idea that – and when I say wonderful, I think that it's kind of weird. But you want to do it, so I'm going to let you do it. You want to draft Halloween movies, which I don't even know, like – how do you, like, what are we going to do? 5 rounds and we just get to pick Halloween movies?
Yeah. Okay, so the first tier, you can pick literally, like, okay, so just...
Are we just talking, like, horror movies? Like, oh, it's a scary movie that qualifies? Or is it, like, a movie about Halloween? Because there's a movie about Halloween, I can only think of, like, 3 or 4 movies.
No. We're talking, like, horror movies. Because it's a very limited subject matter if you just go Halloween. Yeah, so you could pick anything you want. Let's do 4 rounds. You pick anything you want, and by virtue of me thinking of it, I will have first pick.
What? Is this a snake draft?
This is a snake draft, yes.
Okay.
I will go first. Okay, so when we make our pick, we talk about why it's awesome. We talk about why it's badass, and why the other person should be really jealous. I mean, I don't know. I just brainstorm off that. Yes, I know. The Shining, Jack Nicholson, my first pick. I think it's one of the greatest movies ever. Tells an amazing story of a guy gone crazy, the resort, a haunted resort, sort of a possessed resort, taking his spirit and really turning him against his family. A lot of classic moments. Red Rom, hallways full of blood. The two creepy sisters in the hallway. Really Jack chasing his family around the house in the climax. When he gets lost in the maze. Well, not Jack. I forget what his character was in there. Last time I watched it was 5 years ago. But it's really a pinnacle film to me. Stanley Kubrick. That is who directed it, correct? Stanley Kubrick directed
I don't know.
it. Yes.
I haven't actually seen The Shining, to be honest with you.
But you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I know. Oh, I know.
Yeah. Stanley Kubrick, crazy guy. Also did Full Metal Jacket. Also did 2001: A Space Odyssey. Kind of fits in line with just in general his insanity, and to me, it's the perfect horror movie.
Okay.
You can just Google it too, man.
Second overall pick, I take Insidious, which I think is a.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
If you have you seen Insidious?
I've seen Insidious. That's like taking Achilles Smith, or that's like taking.
I don't
Eric
know who
Johnson.
the hell that is.
Okay, fine. That's like taking Eric
Insidious
Johnson.
is a great movie. I've never heard a single person that saw it did not think it was a good movie. It's suspenseful.
It's a good movie. It's like a mid-round pick.
It's extremely suspenseful. It's honestly, it's one of my favorite movies. Very suspenseful movie. Great story. My main issue with many horror stories is that they don't make sense. They just kind of happen. And I think Insidious is like it's a plausible kind of story. Getting a little more into the demon possession kind of side of it. Getting a little more into like the spiritual side of it. From what I went to a Christian school. I'm pretty open about my faith with people. From what I know about demon possession, it's extremely accurate to how demon possession can happen. In terms of kind of like the stalking starting, and then like they kind of close in on their target before actually getting the target, like that. So it was just super creepy to think about that. And I think the story's great. There's a lot of suspense. It's like scary at parts, but like it's not so scary that you're like, let's all turn this movie off. Like it's scary in like a really good way that makes you want to keep watching. And so I think that's a good one. And let's not do a snake draft because I don't have a next pick. So give me a second to think about a pick.
Okay, go ahead and do that. I will take Silence of the Lambs, another one of my favorite movies. I watched it as a kid, regrettably, the first time.
Dude, that's the movie I think I was trying to think of right now. Where that's the one where Hannibal Lecter cuts off the guy's face and wears it as a mask, right?
He does that in a lot of movies, but yeah, I think that's his original. It was his original debut, the debut of Hannibal Lecter, like the character.
Yeah. That's the one I was trying to think of where I couldn't remember the name of the movie. So damn it.
Yeah, I regrettably watched it the first time where I was 10 or 12, and I just remember the first scene where all the cops are walking in, where they're walking into all the skinned human carcasses and such. And it's just, I mean, you look at how the movie is and how the atmosphere is played off and the creepiness of the characters. I mean, it had the best actor, Anthony Hopkins, who is, to me, one of the greatest villains ever in film history, and how he plays this cat and mouse game with Jodie Foster's character, who also won Best Actress for an Oscar. And the whole dynamic just builds this tension throughout, and how they're trying to find Buffalo Bill and the other serial killer, using Anthony Hopkins' Hannibal Lecter. And, I mean, it's just beautifully done. Like, even the final scene, for spoilers, I mean, this is almost a 30-year-old movie. So for spoilers, at the end, just the humor and the levity where Anthony Hopkins is sitting alone in the Caribbean looking for the detective that was hunting him earlier, and he's talking to Clarice, Jodie Foster's character, about how he's going to have a nice meal. Because for those who don't know, Hannibal Lecter's a cannibal, and he's looking right at the detective. Like those kinds of little touches are throughout the entire movie and building tension or levity. I mean, creepy and perfect all in one.
Okay, I'm trying to do some thought here, because I don't know. I haven't you sprung this on me, and I'm not a big horror movie person, to be honest with you.
I'm doing it off the top of more or less on the top of my head too. I'm just thinking of good movies that I like. So I mean, it's fine.
I'm not a big horror movie person. Not that I'm like a scaredy cat or anything, but I just don't like. I'm not super into them. But
Mhm.
I think my second pick. I don't know if you've ever heard of this movie. I don't know how many people have seen it. It's on Netflix, so you should watch it. It's called The Babadook. And
I've seen the Babadook. It's pretty good.
it's a good movie. I think it's like an indie film. But it's just like, again, it's one of those movies that is not overly scary. Has like the scary moments, suspenseful moments, but like the story is interesting, and that's kind of what I look for more in movies. Is like, can you hook me with a story? And so I think that that's a really fun movie. It's very interesting. Again, like just kind of like what happens and how this. I don't want to ruin it because I want people to go watch it on Netflix because it's good. But the transformation of the way that they kind of view the Babadook and how they approach trying to defeat it is interesting. And so I think it's
Babadook.
yeah.
Dook.
Actually, what's kind of funny, me and my friends were watching it, and I don't know. I honestly I don't know the name of this song for real, but we kept going the Babadook, do 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 do, the Babadook, do 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 do. So whatever song that one is, I don't know what it's from, but I think people will recognize that tune. Obviously, Robert doesn't know it because he's the loser. Go ahead, Robert. Your third pick.
I will stick to very cliche choice here. Third is Halloween, creating the most invincible movie character ever, Michael Myers. No matter what you do to him, he seemingly can't die. He seemingly can't disappear. I think what they explain is that he's just like possessed by some kind of malevolent force where no matter what happens, like just he somehow seems to rise. I mean, they get him with like shotgun blasts, they burn him alive, and in every subsequent sequel he comes back. He's just this never-ending force of destruction and evil. And even how they frame how he becomes a serial killer, like this child that murders animals and such. Like, it's not as necessarily scary. It's just more. It's more about like it's more of this feeling of inevitability. Like, it's a movie that's very good the first time you watch it, but somehow on all your subsequent viewings around this time of year, like you're still like, holy shit, how is he still getting back up? Like because you're still so enveloped in the tension and the atmosphere. Like how is he still like coming after them? Like after all, he's been through all this shit. It's exhausting. So that's my third pick.
Sure. My third pick is Mirrors, starring Kiefer Sutherland. If I don't know how many people have seen the movie. Have you seen the Mirrors?
I have not seen Mirrors. I've never even heard of it.
You should watch it. It's very fascinating. Basically, the premise is that Kiefer Sutherland is a police officer. I think, right? I think pretty sure he's a police officer, and he's been in like investigating deaths that they just have no explanation for. And basically, these like mirrors are possessed, and they kind of get into why that is the case throughout the movie. But these mirrors are possessed and have been killing people, and it's again it's another movie with the story's great, the way it develops is great. Kiefer Sutherland is a good actor, not necessarily huge in the movie world, but he's good in this role, and I really like the story. It's hard because I don't want to give away like what happens, and it's like
I've literally never even heard of it. You know,
you should watch it. It's good. It's I mean, it doesn't have the best reviews. If just it has a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I really liked it. So I'm not a big horror movie person, so I'm not really looking for good movies per se. But I don't think most horror movies get good reviews on Rotten Tomatoes anyway.
Well, the most recent successful one, which will be my final fourth pick and be the anchor of my team, my championship team, that is, The Conjuring. I think is one of the best horror movies ever. Definitely the best modern era horror movie. Fantastically done with relatively unknown cast. The tension builds up. I remember watching it the first time with my friends, like just in college. Like we didn't see it in theaters. We got it off, I believe, at a Redbox, and it pleasantly surprised us because horror movies they're not. And it's not to sound like an old man or anything because we're not, but they're just not made the same way anymore, and had a very nice modern take. And I believe like the stories from the same. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Amityville Horror, but it's the same investigators that worked on here, and then it's the same investigators that worked on the sequels to Conjuring 2. just the perfect movie to me. Well, perfect horror movie to me, that is.
Okay, and the final pick of the draft and the anchor of my team is season 1 of American Horror Story. Which I don't know if that's cheating because it's not really a movie. It's 12.
I mean, that's technically cheating.
It's
That's
like 12 episodes.
You're going to have to talk to the commissioner about circumventing the salary cap, but go
it's
on.
okay. I'll pay the cap recapture when they retire. But yeah, the American Horror Story is a great show. I should say from what I've heard, I'm actually not super
Season
into
1,
it.
right?
Yeah, season 1 was phenomenal. I really loved it. I've heard I think season 1's the only one I've actually watched, but I really, really liked it, and I've heard it just gets better if you watch it. Again, I'm not a huge horror movie person. I don't really know a lot of horror movie fans, that's like it's not necessarily. I feel like it's a show that you don't watch alone. I don't know. Like I feel like it's like a show that you watch so that you can talk about it with people. And I don't like to watch horror movies alone because I do like. Obviously, it's a little easier to be scared when you're with people. And can kind of laugh about being scared together. So I have not been into I have not really watched American Horror Story, but season 1 was phenomenal. I really liked it, and so I draft that.
Okay, well, that just about concludes this draft.
I just won the Super Bowl for sure, though.
I just started a dynasty. No. I think we can continue.
Your team actually is much better than mine, but also it's because you prepared for this draft.
I did not prepare.
You attended the combine.
Yes, I did the necessary scouting,
and
I've looked at film. I've broken everything down.
You're the guy who buys the fantasy football preview magazine.
You're not giving me for being prepared.
And I just checked out the rankings.
You're knocking me for being prepared, for being over-prepared.
This has been episode 3 of season 2 of the Second City Hockey Ice Cold podcast. My name is Adam Hess. You can follow me on Twitter @_Adam Hess. That's Robert Zaglinski. Follow him on Twitter @RobertZEG Linsky. Follow our work on SecondCityHockey.com. Follow Second City Hockey on Twitter @2ND City Hockey. And follow the podcast @Ice Cold Podcast. If you don't do these things, you're fired.
All right,
Robert, do you have any closing remarks?
I won. That's all we have to disagree on. I won.
Oh, okay. Good job, Robert. For Robert Zaglinski, I'm Adam Hess signing off. Thanks for listening, everybody. Stay classy.